Hello, Hill City. We are live, at least in this basement studio here. We are drinking specialty coffee from Sweet Bloom and enjoying that on a snowy day. But hopefully you guys are doing well. And as you hear today, we just want to share a couple of things that are going on during the season. We're going to recap some of the sermon and then go into depth of that. I hope that you guys just continue to join us and we grow together. All right. I just wanted to start by asking Hannah just to explain Lent, the season, and what it represents.
Yeah, so the season of Lent is something we're practicing this year that's kind of new to Hill City. If you are from a traditional church background, you might have heard of the season of Lent before or have some idea of what it's about, but it's the 40 days leading up to Easter, and it's a season where we practice remembering the story of Christ. It's a season of repentance and of acknowledgement of our sin. And it's also a season to give generously from the sacrifices we're making. So during Lent, it's traditional to give up something. It could be fasting from food on a particular day of the week, which we do as a church on Tuesdays, if you'd like to join us. Or it could be that you decided you're gonna uninstall Instagram from your phone, like I did. I'm still regretting. But whatever the practice is, the whole point is that sacrifice reminds you of Jesus' sacrifice, that he sacrificed it all to go to the cross. It's a great way to just sort of enter into Jesus' story and remind ourselves to organize our time, not just in this Lent season, but throughout the whole year, around that pivotal moment of Jesus on the cross and Jesus rising in victory. We have been doing this and encouraging you guys to join us in hopes that we can sacrifice something and also give generously. So we're hoping on Easter to collect a special gift. This is anything you have prayed about and want to set aside. It could be from the sacrifice you're making. If you decided, I'm not going to Starbucks anymore for Lent, I'm going to save up that money and sacrifice that. Or maybe it's just an amount that you decided on above whatever your normal giving is. Whatever the case, we're going to take those gifts on Easter. We'll collect them and be able to contribute them to Global Call, which is an organization we support as a church that does amazing work in Ethiopia and Sudan and surrounding countries, helping widows and orphans, doing food distribution, training pastors. And we're always excited about the work they do and very excited to use our time of sacrifice to continue to support them in a special way.
Absolutely. Well, what is one thing that maybe that you were practicing during Lent? Maybe I should start with that.
Yeah, why don't you go? What's one thing you're practicing during Lent, John?
What is one thing I'm
And how have you felt during that time?
Yeah, during the season of during the Easter season, the Lent season, I normally go into a 40-day fast of some sort. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing this for a couple of years now. And some years I'm like, I'm so excited. I'm feeling like, you feel the spirit and like you're excited about it. And other years it's like so hard every single day. But that's what I'm doing. I'm fasting every day. And then fasting, like this is how it goes. I'm just fasting breakfast and lunch and eating dinner with my family. And truly it is always a sacrifice because sometimes you're out for lunch or dinner, or they ask you want something, you're like, no, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I have been drinking copious amounts of coffee.
It's not recommended.
That's not always recommended. I don't even know if caffeine does anything to me, because I drank many cups last night and I fell right asleep. But it's just a time where I'm choosing to identify with Christ in such a minimal way, if I can get down to it. But it's this moment where I'm saying, I choose you. Especially when you're really feeling it. Especially when you really don't want to. Yeah. It's this practice of saying, God, I am remembering you and I choose you. And I find that even that practice of denying myself is so important for my life in God. Because there's moments we wake up, we don't want to read the Word of God. There's moments we wake up, I don't want to deal with my kids. There's moments I wake up and I'm sure Candace does not want to deal with me. And these moments we are practicing the life of Jesus, not just this moment of with Jesus, where we say again, I deny myself and I choose Christ. And in choosing Christ, I choose my wife, or loving my neighbors, or not screaming at the bad driver, or whatever. This can go on and on. Not yelling at your coworker, or being a manager that takes on the stress so that other people don't need to take it on. These Christ-like movements of continuing to choose to identify with Him. Yeah. So fasting is a big one, and of course charity is another one. At the end of Easter, I'm doing exactly what we're doing. We're participating in fasting and in charity. And another one I would say is that it's not only a Lent thing for me, but I choose to read the Word of God first. That's the very thing I do in the beginning of the day, even though like I might feel so tired. I open up the Bible as every morning as my first thing. Yeah. So,
great.
How about yourself?
Well, one thing I'm doing, and there's a few things I decided this Lent that I felt like God was asking me to do, but one thing that I mentioned already was to get off of social media.
Yeah.
I've been on Facebook on and off just because, not on my phone, deleted it off my phone, but just to keep up to date with church stuff. But deleted Instagram, which was the big one. And I looked at my usage of it. It was only like 15 minutes a day, but it was amazing how quickly after I deleted it, my urge to open up my phone and look where the icon had been and try to tap it and be like, oh yeah, it's not on my phone anymore.
Yeah.
So it just become kind of an ingrained habit. If I have a moment, like I said, only 15 minutes a day, but if I have a moment and instead of like first, oh, hey, I have a moment and I know somebody has needs, let me pray for them. Or before I think, instead of scrolling on Instagram now, I might think, hey, I should actually text that person that I'm thinking about. Or, whatever the case may be, it's been a real practice of observing how I spend those moments of time. Not that having downtime is bad, but what we do with it can really shape how we relate to God and how we relate to others. So it's been a good practice for me to kind of get off of there and just try to connect with people in a different way. I noticed too, one of my big things was feeling like people were connecting with me because they had, which is all about the algorithm, right? They build it that way because they like something or because they have seen your story. And so it was important to just kind of think through, those aren't real interactions. Like, that's not real human connection. How can you build in the real human connection that you need as a person without relying on social media to kind of fill in the gap? So again, not saying that social media is evil, but it's important to know, what it's built to do, which is to be addictive, and how they intentionally make it to fill your spare time. And just be more aware of that. So that's been one practice I've been doing. There's some others, but I think that one was the most interesting because I didn't think it would affect me all that much. And the first couple weeks were actually really difficult, especially in those moments of boredom or, hey, I've got 5 minutes, I've got to sit in the car and wait for something. Let me open Instagram.
Instead of having a conversation,
Yeah, or instead of sending that text I've been meaning to, or instead of, taking a couple minutes and praying for people.
Yeah.
So that's been a good one.
Well, as you were speaking, I was really thinking about like that. What do we do with our spare time? Mm-hmm. And I think that's not a small question.
Yeah.
Right? Because like if our first place is home with our people, second place is work, right? And then our third place is supposed to be something we do like for fun. Mm-hmm. But that third place gets taken away to this online metaverse, right?
Yeah.
Really. And what is that actually doing to us and doing to, I would say, even like the way of being human or
Society.
the way, society, culture, things that are really important to our spirituality, to our life, to our relationships, to our impact that we're making, to our, are we diving? Are we selling out our third place with people for being online? And we know it's addictive. It's quick hits, right? It's quick hits, and it makes us feel good in the moment. We laugh in the moment. Memes are great, and they're funny. They really are funny, but is it taken away from these moments of being in the car and the silence and then asking questions, and that question opening up like a deeper relationship?
Yeah, not to go dark or anything, but really I have found too, it's an easy way to get away from deeper emotions you're feeling. You know, you might find when you don't have an excuse to just scroll that you are suddenly like, oh, I'm suddenly aware I'm really sad about this, or I'm really angry about this. Before I would have just numbed out because I don't want to deal with those emotions.
Yeah.
But now I actually have to address, why am I feeling this way? What are the questions I need to ask or things I need to do to
pray about?
True.
Yeah, what do I need to bring to God, bring to others? I do really believe like we use social media as a medication device.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a way of thinking, you know, to kind of enlarge that understanding of medication. We think there are pills and medicine, but our brain works in a certain way where social media gives us those pills to keep us going back or keep us in the loop without ever moving out.
Yeah. So those were just some thoughts about that experience during Lent. I know that some of you might be thinking it's too late to start Lent.
Oh, that's good.
We can't get started now because it's already been a couple weeks. It's not too late. It would be great to start the practice now and experience some of what the season of Lent has to offer to your spiritual life, to your relationships, and especially to your relationship with God. Not that we're saying like this is a workspace thing, you have to do Lent to connect with God, but you'll find it is something that really makes you think and does open up time and different avenues of connecting with Him. So if you'd like to join us, not too late. You can pick something to give up. I would love if you are doing something for Lent that you would type it into the comments because we'd love to know what you're doing and how we can pray for you, because we can all be praying for each other during this experience as well.
Yeah, or if you need help figuring it out, we'd love to help even in that way. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've been in this Encounter series.
Yeah.
And last week you preached about a really important episode in Jesus's life. And if you haven't caught up with the Encounter series, you can do that in our playlist. But it's been about the question, who is Jesus?
Yeah.
And we've basically been talking about different actions, teachings, episodes from the Gospels that show us how Jesus encountered people and showed something about who He was, revealed something of who He was to those people in those moments. And one of the moments that comes to mind leading up to Easter is really the Last Supper. That's a huge one in the story leading to the cross. And you kind of honed in on a specific action Jesus took.
It's a very strange action. Like, you're having a dinner, Jesus chooses, this is in John 13, Jesus chooses to stop everything and begin to wash feet. And then all sorts of awkward happens, right? Yeah, when like Jesus is at your house and He chooses to wash your feet, it's very awkward. It's not normal. It wasn't normal back then, right? This is Bible stuff. No, it was even more radical than if it would happen now, I would think, because in that culture, Jewish rabbis, Jewish leaders do not do the job of the servant or the slave or whoever is at the lowest of that hierarchy, that cultural hierarchy. And so here is Jesus, who is God, like, who is all God. And John 13 prefaces, the writer prefaces, like, he had all the power. And like, and I in the sermon, I really wanted to draw that out, but I didn't. I kind of touch on it. Just imagine that. Imagine you having all the power, all the authority to stop anything that was supposed to, that you didn't want to happen. And you were on top. You were the king. And then you choose to take the lowest role of the house, making everyone awkward. Imagine.
It kind of reminds me, the example that popped into my head just now when you were saying that, modern day example was just like if you walked into a boardroom meeting and a CEO started like taking everyone's coffee orders.
Yeah.
And like got everyone situated and did all the stuff the temp is supposed to do.
That's good.
It's not the exact same, and it's not as awkward as washing feet, but that's just what came to mind, was if you had this high-powered individual who's seen by everyone as the one with all authority in the room.
Yeah, the one everyone fears, right?
Yes.
And does the opposite. I know that a couple years back in 2016 that the Pope went to a prison and started to wash people's feet. He washed feet of people, men, women, and then he washed feet of people that were not even the same religion. It was
refugees.
Refugees. Right? Oh yeah, refugees, immigrants, like showing that all this authority allows us. It's so opposite. A lot of times we think authority means that you serve me now. I made it, right? Yeah. I got to this place.
I get to tell people what to do.
I have the power. I get to tell people what to do. And Jesus said, no, you have all the power, so you use it for the benefit of the lowest person. You have all this money. You have all this blessing. You have all this talent, and you choose to use it for the lowest person. Yeah. I don't know how that hits you. That hits me deeply. I can feel that. And I can feel God speaking to me personally about that. How has God blessed you or used you or placed you? And how are you using that position, that place, that blessing? And I'm just really thinking that over for myself. When we have the authority, do we choose to take it to the bottom, to lift them to the top? Yeah. Yeah.
And I think in that there was a verse we were talking about before this filming started that really stuck out to you as well, about now that you know this, or now that we've seen this example.
It's verse 17. Now that you know this, right? You will be blessed if you do it. If you do that.
It's not really something you can ignore. Yeah. Now that you know this, imagining Jesus in that place, he's finished washing their feet. He's talked about servanthood, and he's saying, now that you know this.
Yeah, and this is like on the last day, like that he's with his closest people, and this is how he wants to finish off dinner. Maybe it was the beginning or the end, but now that you know this, you're blessed. You do them. How does that speak to you?
I think the first thing that strikes me is just the blessed part.
Yeah.
Because kind of like you were talking about, we assume when we gain some amount of authority or power, or it could be anything. Like, now that I'm known in this place, I don't have to make an effort to get to know others.
Or good.
Now that I have this position that I've been aiming for, I don't have to try as hard to make friends with my coworkers.
Yeah.
Now it's my turn to tell the secretary what to do. And now that I have this amount of money, or I live in this neighborhood, it's not as important for me to make sure I know my neighbors or do things for them.
Yeah.
There's all sorts of ways it could fit in. But the idea of being blessed, it's not just, hey, you have to do this hard thing because you're following me, which is sometimes the case with what Jesus says. But he says you'll be blessed if you do the opposite of what the world says.
Yeah.
And with the amount of authority or giftedness or money or whatever it is, you use it to serve others.
Yeah.
Which is so counterintuitive to what we tell people, which is basically like hoard all you can,
Yeah.
or use it for your own needs or desires, or to take care of your own
Safety,
instead of
security, health.
providing for others. And so to believe that Jesus will bless us if we take on this role of a servant, just like he did, requires you to do it. You know, you're never going to see what sort of blessing exists in that unless you do it. So I guess the big question that comes to mind for me is, how do we do that? How do we take on the role of servant practically day to day in our lives? How do we follow Jesus?
Yeah.
Or like, how have we seen that play out? How have we seen that exampled for us and others?
Yeah. I know that for me, there's many people in my life that has showed me like Jesus. Like, you could have told me this and I would not believe it, right?
Yeah.
But then there's certain people we know that are filled with the Spirit of God, filled with joy, filled with strength. And it's not like a strength of like, I'm going to show you my power. It's a strength of gentleness. It's more of a calming strength. They come into the room, you know things are going to be taken care of. There's certain people in my life that hold that sort of, I don't know, blessed strength or blessed reality. And I hope that I can continue to move more towards that. Blessed peace. I know my wife teaches me quite a bit about sacrifice and taking care of people.
Yeah.
I know that there's certain people that teach me about justice. Yourself, Isaac teaches me about justice. There's people that, like, during this time where I've lost my mom, there's people that have reached out, and like Heather, thank you for reaching out to me. There's different individuals that I can name that in my weakness, you showed your weakness too. It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to be super strong towards you. No, I'm going to go to the bottom and just cry with you. I'm going to sit with you on the ground because I know you're miserable. It's not saying, you're miserable, I'm miserable. No, it's like, I'm okay sitting on the floor with you crying. I had friends like Paul that just listened to me cry. You know, it's you would think that we want this powerful strength, but our humanity really wants to be loved even at our lowest place.
Yeah.
And there's something about that that's radically different. And I love Jesus in that he didn't tell us. He wasn't like, this is what you should know. He showed us and then he taught us. He said, this is not something I won't do as the one with all the power.
Yeah.
He says, since I have all the power, I'm going to show you first. And that's a radically different kind of person. It's the highest way of being human. Yeah. How about yourself?
I'm trying to think. I think what came to mind first was the idea of putting into practice that you are not above anything.
Oof, that's good.
I think that's been, I haven't walked this out perfectly, but I think that's something that's on my mind a lot.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to be in the place, unfortunately, because of bad examples I've seen. I don't ever want to be in the place that I think I'm above serving in some way. And just trying to be open with my time and abilities and everything I have to not think I'm above doing even the smallest part of what Jesus did.
Oh man, just to go off that, I was thinking, and not to ever think that anyone is lower than us.
Yeah.
When they stop, sometimes we can pick and choose people that bear the image of God and pick and choose people that are lower than who we are.
Yeah.
And so Jesus, you know, he equals out the playing field
Yeah.
of who he loves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think just continually, and it can come up in really small moments. I think sometimes people are hesitant to ask for help if they think like, oh, this isn't really something for them to do. But I try my best in small moments to be someone who's like, oh, I don't care, I've got that, I can do that.
Yeah.
So I think that's been just a practical way. I think examples, like you, I think there's just been people who have that sort of very natural humility about them.
Beauty, really.
Yeah, and who you would never guess that they have maybe the status they could lay claim to.
Yeah.
Even think about that with Jesus, that
Yeah.
would his disciples have guessed? And some of them had some inkling who he really was, what authority he really had when he was on the ground washing their feet.
I mean, prior to that, they were talking about what role they would play in heaven.
Right.
So they
true.
saw him at
at least in like his kingdom, whatever that looked like to them. Yeah. So I think of people, I don't know, like Craig Blomberg, who was my mentor for a while, and I don't think as a student I really grasped, like, I was kind of scared of him when I first met him because I did know he was a Bible scholar, but I didn't think about like what humility it took to make it a constant part of his life to mentor students.
Yeah.
Because there were so many people in the same field who think that they're done with that. Like, unless it's helping with a dissertation or something, or a thesis.
Unless you're helping me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was really cool. He gave me so many different opportunities. There's been so many people I think of my mom, who's always been the person who, when somebody comes to them and asks for prayer, she actually prays for them in that moment.
Yes.
Having the humility not to just give the like Christianese answer of I'm praying for you, but to actually do it and to serve people in that way. And I think of so many examples in our church of people who just go out of their way to do what's needed. I mean, like the Mitchells always like, what do you need? How can we help? There's so many people at church. It's
I think of
super
Hannah
blessed.
bringing flowers.
Yeah.
And Michelle just like reaching out to me, like, in the lowest of the lowest, I felt so loved, that's radical. That's radical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that went way deeper than we even got to talk about, or I got to talk about in the sermon.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that we got to go there. And just thank you for joining us on this conversation. And I hope that we learned something. And then, like Jesus, we're blessed as we do it. As the Holy Spirit speaks to us, do it. Yeah. God bless you guys.